Okay, right. So I'm going to formally introduce Eleanor. This is Eleanor. She's the chief accountant at Do the Numbers. She also drives around in a yellow car, sports car. So if you see that turning up outside your parish and town council,
Panic.
no, get into your Zen mode. She's there to help you. She audits, she's been in the business since 1997, secretary at the Internal Auditors Forum. Jess, if you don't mind sharing a link on the website there, I'm sure Eleanor will be talking a bit more about that. Yeah, and she audits over 50 town and parish councils. She's also thrown in, like, if there's not only auditing, but like one-off kind of consulting gigs where she kind of has to do a bit more forensics and kind of looking at particular situations. Yeah, as you said, she's straight talking, an absolute expert. She also has a tendency to answer any questions that are coming up in the chat. So I've told her
I'm not opening the chat. I'm keeping it
not gonna
closed.
open
I'm
the
going to be
chat.
good.
Yeah, but you guys put any questions in the chat and I start organizing them myself, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So over to you, Eleanor.
So yes, my name's Eleanor. For anyone who's met me and will know, yes, I do drive a yellow Saab convertible. And there was a clerk whose house I was working at, and her neighbour popped round, and the neighbour said, "So what's the best bit of the audit?" And she pointed to the drive and went, "Watching that drive away." So I know when I'm welcome in a place. But no, I mean, the thing is, the internal audit process, yes, it's onerous, yes, it's legally required, but also we are very, very aware that you are by definition the only clerk in the village, and it can be bloody lonely doing your job, and you can feel very unsupported. And part of our job is to reduce the biggest risk in any council, which is a change of clerk. There is no risk bigger in a council than the proper officer walking out and taking all what they've got in their head with them. So part of our job is to support officers in doing it right and feeling supported. The reason I asked for some cameras to be on is because I did one of these and it was literally black screens, and it's really hard for me to tell if you're getting bored out of your minds and going out to walk the dog if I've got no screens on. So that was why I asked for that. So this session's called Keeping Your Internal Auditor Happy. So I'm focusing very much on the fact that we are, 6 weeks away from the year end. Some things have changed, not much, but in quite significant ways in little bits. So I've actually got some notes. I don't do PowerPoints, as many of you know. I hate PowerPoint. So the first comment when you're preparing for internal audit and keeping your internal auditor happy is, are your records complete and are they up to date? You know, you've got time to call a meeting between now and the end of the year if need be. So are all your hard copy documents, so all your minutes and supporting papers, are they printed out? Have they been signed? Have the minutes been initialed on every page? Have the supporting documents been initialed? Are they in a ring binder, not in a folder that's going to drop across the floor when the auditor reaches to pick it up? I did have that. The poor clerk nearly cried because it was 6 months worth of minutes just went. So yeah, please put stuff in ring binders. If any of your SLCC members, you'll know that ring binders and plastic wallets are a perfectly legal way to store minutes. My personal favorite, I admit, is a ring binder with the minutes in one plastic wallet and the agenda pack in the plastic wallet behind. Newest on top, going up. Dead easy to check. Dead easy for you to know everything's been signed. So, are your hard copy documents tidy and up to date? Please check. Are all your electronic documents properly filed? So if you use Scribe, have you been attaching all of your invoices to the Scribe ledger? They make it so flipping easy. And of course, you then don't have lever arches of manky bits of paper anymore. So, and if you're on Rialtus, you can either attach, I don't think Rialtus let you attach, but interestingly, what several councils who do Rialtus now have is they create a linked PDF file of all 40 invoices that go through each payment run. So then I can click on a PDF file and open them up. So if you're doing it electronically, are they safely stored? Do you have backups? Please make sure that your backups are not sitting on top of the computer. If something happens to the computer, it will happen to the backup as well, unless it's in a different place. So yeah, are your electronic documents up together? Cumulative reports for payroll. I admit one of my biggest bugbears is payroll providers who do not produce a year-end report showing total cost of employment. If you've got Sage Payroll, it's the quickest, it's cumulative employer cost. It's really obvious. If you're on Basic Tools, it's year-to-date summary per employer. If you're using BrightPay, it's year-to-date per employer. Have that to hand so that your auditor can check your total payroll cost against your box 4 figure. While we were waiting to start up, there was a quick question about councillor allowances. Even if they go through payroll, they go in box 6 because councillors are not employees, which is a pain with the PAYE, but that's why you have the cumulative cost. So councillor allowances go in box 6, officers go in box 4. So yeah, councillor payroll reports. Bank statements. Have you got statements for all of your deposit accounts and stuff like that? Now, there are some pain in the neck banks who won't release a statement unless there's been a transaction. They shall remain nameless, Barclays. But, you know, there are banks that won't do it. It's an absolute nightmare. But if you have got online banking, log in and take a screenshot of the balance at the year end and put that in your bank file. Because then you've got proof of what all of your bank balances are. If you are one of those councils that persists in having a paying in book savings account, it's probably too late to change it to a proper bank account now, but please start looking at that. But yeah, even building society accounts all produce statements now. CCLA, of course, their statements come out 4 days after the year end. If you've got a bond statement that is an annual bond that's on a rollover, and the rollovers after the year end, the balance is the one that is at the year end. So it's the one before the interest goes on. So do training and travel go as staff costs? Absolutely not. No. Right, I'll stop distracting myself there. Sales ledgers. If you're a big council and you've got sales and purchase ledgers, have you been through your ledger balances and made sure that you haven't got random mess in there? What I mean is where somebody paid and they underpaid by a penny and you've got 5 invoices and 2 payments leading to a balance of 1 penny. Write it off, tidy it up, get your ledgers tidy. Because also, if you are doing, big councils doing an age debtors review, if you've got loads of junk over in the 90-day column that adds up to nothing, it distorts your figures. So get them clean, get them tidy. If you've got a budget account with a utility provider, have you allocated the payments against the bills so that you actually know that what the balance in the ledger is agrees to the most recent invoice, and utility bills are a pain. Same with debtors. Have you been through your debtors? Have you reviewed the collectability of old debts? Have you written them off if need be? And there are times when you just say, the effort to collect this is not worth my time as a proper officer. We will write it off. If it's a big amount, you take it to council. If it's a really small amount, you just write it off. You know, if you've got somebody hired the hall and they actually used an extra half hour and you billed them an extra £12, they only paid the original amount. Really? You're going to take £12 to council? Get rid, tidy your ledgers up, make sure that you have everything there. And if you do have really old debts or old invoices on your ledger, be ready to explain why. So have looked at it before the year end and have a think through. If the auditor says, why is that invoice on there? Do I know? So it's, yeah, and Tim's saying have a bad debt policy. Any council with a big, decent amount of, town councils in particular, if you've got a venue where you hire out to dance studio, dance classes and regular hirers, you really should, I've seen, there was a council that had to write off a £5,000 bill. That was pretty painful. But actually, because they hadn't chased it regularly, they couldn't get away with it. So think through, and this is your chance to, in your pre-year end prep, say to your finance committee or your whoever is your head of finance, say, actually, we really should be thinking about this, because if nothing else, even if you haven't done it because of your meeting times, when you get to the internal audit, you can say, yeah, we've made a bit of a mess there, but here's what we're doing about it. That will give you a very happy internal auditor, because you have exhibited controls over your systems before they've even had to walk in the door. Quick one, for those few lucky districts that still get council tax support grant, have you made sure that your precept figure is the same as the one on the MHCLG website? So have you made sure that what you are putting into box 2 is only the precept? Because you will fail the audit test if it's not. And that the list is public. There's no question about it. So check that what you're putting in does not include any grants. There are a couple of districts who are, frankly, a pain in the neck, where they just pay the precept and a couple of grants. They just pay it as one figure, and then they don't even provide a remittance statement. Well, check back that your records are better than your district's. Not hard in many cases. If you've got a PWLB loan, have you checked that what you're going to put on your AGAR matches the year-end data set of the DMO? Again, it's a public record. I actually had a council recently emailed me, and they were very irate that I expected them to publish their PWLB balance. And I'm going, you know, the government published them all. And they were like, oh, do they? Yes, they do. They publish how much you owe, when you owe it, and so on. So check that your PWLB is the same as the one on the Public Works Loan Board is major borrowing. So borrowing for capital projects. If you haven't had to encounter it, lucky you. But certainly the main point, we haven't got an Easter year end this year. Of course, every 7 years, we get Easter clashes with the year end, and I'm hoping that before we get the next of those, all of the payment processes will be Jess, can you share? I will. Sorry, somebody's seeing about the precept figures. I'll get it. It's the Department of DCLG have the precept figures. They've got them going back in time as well. It's great
Yes, you'll
fun.
find it. And also,
Yeah.
Eleanor, if you're using acronyms, make sure you expand on those.
Sorry. So the Department of Local Government, whose current name I can't quite remember because it seems to change every Tuesday, but the Local Government Department is they are the ones who publish precept data for all councils up to districts and counties. But there is a tab on it for the parishes, so you can check every parish around you. And yeah, loan balances, yeah, we haven't got an Easter year end this year, so that won't be a problem. But do make sure that your figures are spot on with that one. So that's your checking your records, your in-house records before the year end. Double check you've got it done, because if you start making sure the files are ready now, then when you're closing down your year end, you've got my favorite councillors, I rock up and they've got a line of files with year end folder, bank, purchases, sales, wages. It's bliss. Yeah, it's really nice to work from one into the other, put them on a chair, and when the table's clear, we're done. It's great. So think about having your work stored sensibly. Personal bugbear, if you're filing invoices, filing anything, newest on top. Why? Because why do you want to go back to the back of the lever arch and mash everything that's at the front to pieces? So always file newest on top. If nothing else, when you open the cover, you can see where you're up to. So that's the paperwork side. Websites. So there is a change. Well, there's been a the website rules are being tightened up. So it is a requirement of the Audit and Accountability Act that 5 years of your AGAR are on your website. 5 years, all 6 pages. It is an audit failure, instant legislation fail, if you do not have 5 years of all 6 pages of the AGAR. No redactions. No redactions are allowed on the AGAR. It should be published in full. Signatures, names, dates, everything, all 6 pages, all 5 years. That's a requirement of the legislation under which we work. Now we get to the fun change. The AGAR form has for many years referred to the Transparency Code. This year, it's not going to. It's going to refer to the Freedom of Information Act, which applies to every single council. There is no gap. There is no, it's just a code. The Freedom of Information Act is the law. And if you are not complying with the Freedom of Information Act publication requirements, your council is breaking the law. That will be an audit fail. This is getting quite heavy this year because frankly, the auditors and the audit regulators are sick of councils going, oh, we don't have to have a website. Yeah, you do. And this is what's got to be on it. So the ICO publishes a model publication scheme for councils. That does not mean you publish their publication scheme and think you've done the job. You publish the contents of the publication scheme. I would strongly recommend you download it and insert hyperlinks to the sections of your website that contain all of your agendas for the last 3 years, all of your minutes, all of your agenda papers. Yeah, the ICO has ruled and has gotten very grumpy at councils that do not publish their agenda packs. It's getting tighter. And it's not a transparency code requirement that we can all pretend is a bit fluffy. It's the law now. The law's always been in place, but it wasn't referred to. What they did last year was they changed the AGAR to say appropriate legislation. And all of us as internal auditors were going, what on earth does that mean? Well, this year they've said it. It's the Freedom of Information Act. And that is absolutely required on every council. There is no getting around it. And if you are challenged on your website and you haven't done the FOI, Freedom of Information Act stuff, your elector will go to the ICO and you will be told to sort it out and publish. They tend to give you 30 days. Yeah, so there was a council who had to upload 3 years of agenda packs and they were given 30 days to do it. I don't think they got much else done in that 3 weeks. Yeah, so please look at your website, look at the publication code. The publication code and the transparency code are very, very similar. So just make a point of having, so you have your publication code and it says our minutes and agendas. So you can just put in a link to your minutes and agendas page. Our policies, put a link to your policies page. So you don't need to publish everything multiple times, but you do need to make sure it's there. Is your list of councillors up there? Is the list of their DPIs up there? Is the list of your staff and roles up there? Those are required. Yeah, there's no getting around them. Payment listings. Payment listings have got to be up there. And also, as the external auditors have been saying for about 2 decades, councils that are transparent get less nasty queries. The best way to shut up a vexatious elector is to publish what you're actually doing and prove that most of what they're making up is made up. So publish, publish, publish. It can be very depressing when you look at page hits on your website, because if you are a happy council where nobody's too bothered, you can spend all this effort and then see that there's been like 11 hits, 10 of which were you and 1 was the internal auditor. I know that is depressing. But the reality is, I'll come back to DPIs. The reality is that it is a legal requirement. You are spending taxpayers' money. They can be sent to prison for not paying the precept money. You have a legal responsibility to look after their money. Policies on your website. My favourite bugbear, this one. Lovely policies page on the website. Some of the policies are 5, 10 years out of date, even though the council has minuted approving the latest one. So please make sure that the policies on your policies page match the ones you so dutifully uploaded when you did your new financial regulations. Has everybody adopted the new financial regulations? If not, why not? Please do a meeting in March and do it, because the new fin regs are much better written than the old ones. And don't go over adapting. Steve Parkinson tore out what remaining hair he had to write those fin regs. They're very clearly written. They've been checked by a lot of people. They're good. Use them. They will protect you against accusations of not doing it right. And follow them. But yeah, all of your policies, if you've got a policies page, upload when you approved your policies. And I mean, the ideal is you see a list of policies with approved on, review date. Yeah, because then when you pull onto that page, you can go, oh, blimey, we missed that one. Or, oh, we've got 3 years till we need to do that one again. Or that one has to be done every year. So risk assessment, standing orders, financial regulations, they're the ones you need to review every year. They may not need changing, but you need to prove that you've checked them. Because, of course, your risk assessment can change if you buy a new fixed asset, as John raised at the very start in his question. You know, if you've suddenly taken on new land or a new hall, your asset register and risk assessment will all change. So it's worth doing it. And when councillors say, oh, we don't need that policy, you don't need it till the day you do. And the day you do is the day you really, really regret not having it. So employment policies. You're not going to have an employment policy issue until the day you're being taken to tribunal. ACAS has beautiful policies. They're short, they're sweet, use them. Health and safety policies, again, you're not going to need them until somebody falls off your play equipment, at which point your insurer is going to go, can I see your policy? And you're toast. So it's worth, there are lots of really good model templates around some of the big town councils. Borrow them. And yes, the SLCC has loads, NAUC has loads, CALCs have loads. They're all produced with public money. They belong to all of us. Nobody should be going like this with their policies. They're our policies that protect our residents who live and work in many different places. So yeah, please make sure that your policies are up to date. Yes, John.
DPI.
Yes, I will. So I was going to say, my next note was going to be, have you made sure that dead links are gone? Nothing drives me pottier than 404 page not found. If you've got a pedantic councillor, let them loose on the website between now and the year end. Is your list of councillors up to date? Have you updated it for all of your most recent co-options and departures? And declaration of pecuniary interest forms by all members. The best way to make sure you are complying with the law is actually to have a link from your website to your monitoring officer at the district council, or I'm not sure what the Welsh equivalent is, but your district council or your unitary council. So just link to them. But then please look at it and make sure that they've got your right list of councillors, because some districts are a bit rubbish at staying up to date. Yes. So yes, certainly make sure that your list of councillors matches what's been put in your minutes, and it matches what the monitoring officer has got DPIs for. And also have a look at the DPIs, the pecuniary interest forms that the councillors are sending in. Where they say none for their address, do they live in the parish? The only people who can redact their addresses is the monitoring officer. They can't, you can't. If they live in the parish, their address goes on the DPI form. The monitoring officer can then opt to redact if requested. And when they say, oh, I don't own my house, if you read what it says they have an interest in that property. Owned, rented, squatting, living with a friend. And if anyone says, no, I haven't got an interest in it, I said, that's fine. I'll buy the house next door and put up a 7-story block of flats. At which point they suddenly remember they do have an interest in the place they live. Also, if they haven't got any interest in something, like so they don't have shares and securities, please get them to put none. The best councils now have an electronic form they fill in, and of course it makes them fill in all the boxes. But where none, write none. Make sure their addresses are up to date. Make sure they've checked them. Have they actually checked in case they've changed job or retired or anything like that? So do make sure that your members' declarations are up to date, because again, that's one of the things that people get angry about is assuming that councillors are being biased, especially on dear old planning. Yeah. What causes your busiest meetings? Planning. So always make sure, I mean, that's why I have a bugbear about DPR, the pecuniary interest forms, because it will be planning that will cause your problems, and it will be to do with where your councillors live. So that's the key one. Right, moving forwards. Is your audit booked? Do you have a confirmed date and time for when your auditor is coming? And now I apologise to my councils, I haven't done all of mine yet. Most of them do, but not all. But do you know who your auditor is? Have you been in touch with them recently to check they are still auditing? There are a couple of people dropping out without letting people know. So do you have a confirmed date? Have you checked your auditor's current testing requirements? You know, if your auditor doesn't send you out a list of what they're going to look at, ask them for it. Yeah. I've got 2 sides of A4 that literally lists off all the things I would like to see lined up down the table. I know Tim does the same and other IAs do the same. So do you know what your auditor is looking for? Do you have an engagement letter that covers the correct year? Now, my engagement letters are good till cancelled. Some people do 3 years, but do you have an engagement letter? Because BDO, who cover 4 counties, caused a bit of a kerfuffle last year by asking for engagement letters for all of their intermediates. And I can see at least one of the other auditors going, well, that was fun, and doing it to the rest of the country this year. So make sure you've got an engagement letter. And do you have proof that you've acted on all of the recommendations and actions from last year? Have you used the report from the internal auditor and the external auditor and acted on them? So you've got a chance to run a meeting and quickly update the audit report. So do it before the year end. Have you checked the 2024 Practitioner's Guide? Now the 2025 will be coming out in, I think it's about 2 to 3 weeks time. There are no big changes. There's not many words changing, but the word that's changing repeatedly is that should is turning into must. Yeah? They have lost a sense of humour about emails. So sections 1, 2 and 3 of the Practitioner's Guide, they are what is called in the legislation. The 2024 one is compulsory this year. 2025 will be optional. The 2025 one becomes compulsory on the 1st of April. So be aware that you need to be working within the 2025 one from the 1st of April. Practitioner's Guide, sections 1, 2 and 3 have always been the proper practices referred to in the 2014 legislation. They have the force of law. I can't say it often enough. You've heard of, well, the ICO, the Information Commissioner. They are the responsible body for issuing data regulations. If they update a required document, it's the law. The Equalities and Human Rights Commission, if they update a piece of legislation, like about equality assessments, they've been issuing letters to NHS bodies this week. When they issue a letter like that, it has the force of law. Sections 1, 2 and 3 of the Practitioner's Guide have the force of law. So if your councillors say, but I want to carry on using Gmail, you will fail that audit test because you are not complying with the law. It's as simple as that. So when it now says must use an email address linked to the council, that means must. And if you look at the 2024, in fact, there are bits about emails that say must. So councillors can just please stop using Gmail, Yahoo, their own personal email that they haven't actually told the MOD they're using for council business. I've seen that one. So please read sections 1, 2 and 3 of 2024 and make sure you're within it. Section 4 is the guidance for internal auditors. Is your internal auditor familiar with section 4? Does their requirements checklist look like section 4? If not, why not? Section 4 is only 9-10 pages. I typed it years ago, but yeah, it's not very long. But if your internal auditor is not looking at the minutes, is not looking at the policies, is not looking at employment contracts, is not looking at correct application of the employer's allowance, or rather the fact that it's not allowed to councils. If they're not doing that, why are you paying them? Because they are not signing off your AGAR in accordance with the law. So look at section 4, make sure it matches what your auditor is asking for. Section 5 is the one for the clerks and councillors. It was rewritten a couple of years ago. It literally has a paragraph or two of guidance with hyperlinks for every single box on the AGAR. I mean, we wrote it when gang of us wrote it. I had the joy of typing it, but it is the work of about 50 or 60 people, ranging from the National Audit Office to assistant clerks who'd only been in the sector for 6 weeks. So it's really important that you are. So the agenda packs are everything you're going to decide on in the meeting should be in your agenda pack. How can you decide on something if it hasn't gone out to the councillors and the public? So I'm trying to think who does beautiful ones. Fleet Town Council, who I no longer audit, they do beautiful agenda packs. Do have a look at them. They're gorgeous. And Rita from Godalming, who's now the clerk, I presume, is carrying them on. The big town councils, have a look at what they're doing. Another council that does beautiful agenda packs actually is Shaftesbury. They do beautiful agenda packs because they've been through the mill, and so they protect themselves. So yeah, it's worth bearing in mind. But so section 5 is your guidance. That's for you. Just before we started, I was asked, how do you calculate net revenue reserves for the AGAR? So in a normal year, when you're not doing a major project, your net revenue expenditure is boxes 4, 5 and 6. So wages, PWLB and all other expenditure. If you happen to be doing a massive play area that distorts your figures, knock that out when you're working out what your general reserve should be. But in a normal year, so if you're a council that spends about 50,000 a year, say, your net revenue reserve will be between 3 and 12 months. In a big council, it's nearer 3 months. And in a small council, it's nearer 12 months. Because if you're thinking the absolute number, you're wanting your revenue, your general reserve is your contingency fund. It's your, oh my God, we've got flooding, we've got to get sandbags out for things, stuff's going wrong. It's your contingency reserve. So it needs to be about the right size for your council. You know, there's a very, very small council I deal with in the New Forest who actually hold 2.5 years of revenue reserve. That is because 2.5 years of revenue reserve is less than the replacement cost of their bus stop. So they've justified it. It makes complete sense. Their bus stop is built of stone and thatched and linked to a grade 1 listed building. So oddly enough, so they've justified holding that money, and auditors are quite happy with that. It's not a problem. So that's your net revenue reserves. You look at 4, 5 and 6, add them together, divide it by 12, times it by however many months you've got. That's your figure. Allowances, yeah, if you pay councillor allowances, your councillors are not employees, so their allowances go in box 6. And somebody asked about VAT. I'll be quite honest, I've got a really simple answer for VAT. Phone Steve Parkinson. You know, the VAT, there is the VAT guide, which you can pick up, the VAT guide for local councils. There's a load about VAT in the Practitioner's guide, including links. VAT 126 reclaim, you can reclaim if it's a small amount where you've gone to B&Q and bought some tools. The standard under £250 rules apply for till receipts. So if you've gone to B&Q, you don't need the council's name on the B&Q receipt. You can still reclaim the VAT. Yeah. If you have a supermarket receipt for buying things, anything with a star next to it has VAT on it. So milk does, chocky cakes do. Yeah. So you can use the same business and charity, the same business rules for reclaiming VAT on small receipts as any business. If you're a big council, you need to be VAT registered. If you're a small councillor and you're on VAT 126, VAT 126 is not going electronic anytime soon. The revenue have made such a dog's dinner of company VAT, and don't start me on self-assessment online. I have a tax practice of about 80 clients, and some of them still deliver me a carrier bag of smelly receipts, and moving that online, I'm dreading it. So yeah, VAT, any big projects, contact your calc, contact the SLCC, and they will point you to Steve Parkinson, who is, yeah, he's Mr. Council VAT. He's brilliant. The other people who are really good on council VAT is Mulberry and Co. Mark Mulberry, who is based in Surrey, Sussex, and he's built up a big audit team, but Mark's really good on VAT as well. A final bit on that little bit, AGAR approval. When you minute the approval of the AGAR, you are required to minute in the correct order. We received and agreed an action plan on the internal audit report. We approved the governance statement, section 1. We approved the accounting statement, section 2. And these are our dates of public rights inspection. If you minute all of them, then if you're challenged as to if you're challenged on whether you did it or not, you go straight to your minute book. It's dead easy. You've got it there. It's sorted. So yeah, that's the main one. I saw somebody asking about VAT registration threshold. It depends on your business activities. You can have massive councils that are turning over lots of money that don't have business activities and can stay on 126. VAT is a whole nother training course, and I love it, but most other people sanely stay well clear. So things that are changing for 2025. JPEG's got a new name. It's now called SAPP, S-A-P-P-P, the Smaller Authorities Proper Practices Panel. Not to be confused with the German software company SAP, S-A-P, and all other things like that. The reason they have changed the name is because they are focusing much more on enforcing and developing and strengthening the proper practices. At long last, and people like me have been shouting about this since the lighter touch came in 2002, they're putting some beef into the proper practices and internal audit. Because there are ideas of raising the external audit threshold, and it can only happen if they strengthen internal audit, and that's the way it's going. They're going to give us more teeth. I've got lovely teeth already, but you know, they're giving even the fluffy auditors more teeth. Yeah, some updates to the practitioner's guide for 2025 have already been approved. The main thing is that in sections 1, 2, and 3, the legal bit, must is replacing should. So the second you see must, it's non-negotiable. It's really non-negotiable. And if your councillors try to tell you otherwise, they're wrong. And you go to your council meeting, and if they try to say yes, pre-fill the box with no if they've already done it. And your auditor will back you up, because your auditor should be up to speed with it all. Yeah, and the AGAR transparency test is going to mention FOI instead. So last year, previously it said transparency code. Last year it said relevant legislation, which all of us auditors were going, well, which relevant legislation? Come on, give us a break. It's FOI. And the model publication code from the ICO is easily online. It's just follow it. Just, you know, in fact, if you're doing things right, you're already doing it. So it's probably about 40 minutes work to go, yep, doing that, yep, doing that, yep, doing that. So that's there. External audit, we are now in the 3rd year of the current 5-year contract. So we are, right, how do you find an internal auditor? You go to the internal audit forum, of which Tim is the chairman and I'm the secretary, and we've got a lovely list that I will be updating this afternoon of people all over the country. And there's a whole section in section 4 of the practitioner's guide and on the internal audit forum website about the requirements. So yeah, I'll let you go to that sort of thing. So yeah, we're in the third year of the current 5-year contract. And I'm not sure what's happening with the next contract. They're going to start working on that fairly shortly. I'm quite sure that the external auditors are going to ask more snotty questions of intermediate councils, which is those who are over 200,000, because it was a bin fire last year, so they know there's plenty to ask. They asked for stuff and they just didn't get it, so they're going to go heavy, and they are under pressure to go heavy because SAAA, the people who appoint them, are doing more quality assurance work and expecting to see what they do. So basically, the lighter touch at long last is getting heavier, which is good because it's public money. It should be properly overseen. It really should. When it goes wrong. So, you know, if you're if you're feeling a bit beleaguered, so key thing is the worst that can actually happen to you as council is that you get a public interest report. You can't get fined, can't get sanctioned. The council can't sack you for getting a qualified audit because they sign the AGAR form first. The worst that can happen is a public interest report. Some of them are quite entertaining. It's not cool to hide if you get one. Hold your hand up, work on it, because the external auditors will go further and further. You will probably end up in the local press. If you do end up in the local press, invite them to your meetings, engage with them. And if it's the Eastern Daily Press, remind them what I did to them when I was up visiting John's Way, because they printed lies about my work, and I kind of might have reported them to IPSO because I don't like having lies printed about my work. But yeah, if you've made a mess, your best thing to do is hold your hands up, engage with the press, engage with the public, and make it calm down by doing the right thing, which is publishing and correcting. If you make it into the Daily Mail, let me know. I love the Daily Mail ones. There's not very many. There are some. There's some people who, yeah, seem to have a penchant for getting in the Daily Mail. But my rule on all of that is, if the Daily Mail sent a reporter to your meeting, would they write up a story? If they would, you're doing it wrong. If they walk away looking bored, you're doing it right. So that's the underlying rule of thumb. Would the Daily Mail think it's worth writing about you? If not, well done, you're doing well. And then a quick bit on internal audit reporting. The internal auditor is appointed by and answerable to the council as a body corporate, not the clerk, not the RFO, not the chairman, not the snotty councillor who walked out in a huff about a month ago, not a working group or a committee. The internal auditor's management report, and if they don't do a management report, again, what are you paying for? That report goes to full council. It is public. It should be on your website. Yeah, the Freedom of Information Act says that audit reports are public. So internal audit management reports are public. We write them to be public. We know that. So, you know, it's a case of thinking, you know, you've got an action plan. Oh, and I admit, and Tim will probably agree with me here, there is nothing quite as insulting as when we have written you a 4-page report after 3 days of visits and you note it. Hi, you've just paid us nearly £2,000. Do us the honour of actually acting on what we've said. There is a reason we write all of that stuff down. It's not because we love typing. It's because we want you to do it better. And if your report has gone to run, well, I saw one that Tim wrote that ran to 9 pages. You know, it needed to be 9 pages, and that council needs to act on it. There's a reason for that. So when you get a report, take it to full council and act on it. That's how you keep your auditor happy. So that one, nothing is confidential for the internal auditor. Nothing. We have the right to see everything, even settlement agreements if we ask to. We have the right to see everything. Employment contracts, payroll records, you name it, we can ask to see it. Because if there has been a settlement, for example, and we want to understand where the controls failed, we have to be able to understand the audit trail. There are no such things as confidential minutes. There can be confidential reports to meetings, but there aren't confidential minutes. There are no minutes that we cannot see. We get to see your HR minutes, no matter how embarrassing they are. try not to make them embarrassing. But there is nothing we are not allowed to see. It's a constant bugbear where some clerks go, oh, we don't want the auditor seeing that. Why not? What are you hiding? Think of it from that point of view. If you're, if I arrive at a council and I say, oh, can I see that document? And the clerk unlocks the filing cabinet, pulls out that piece of paper and locks it again and doesn't want me seeing what's in the filing cabinet. Whoop, 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 whoop. What are they hiding? Why are they hiding it? Whereas if they say, yeah, sure, the key's over there and would you like a cup of tea while I go and put the kettle on? I know they have nothing to hide. The thing with auditors is by definition, we're nosy and pedantic. That's what we're being paid to do. Yeah. And don't give us a reason to worry about what you're doing. Further reading, Practitioner's Guide. If you have a problem with vexatious electors or you have electors who jump up and down a lot, point them directly to the National Audit Office publication called Understanding Your Rights for Electors. It's really good. It lists the dates they can ask for things, what they can ask for, what they can't ask for. And if you have an elector saying, I'm going to be asking for this, point them at that first, because often it will calm them down. So, try and keep things calm. Make sure you've got your precepting data. SAAA website has got all of the prior public interest reports. I mean, I strongly recommend sitting down with either a strong coffee or a glass of wine to read through some of them. They can be very funny when you see councils who just will not take advice. Don't be one of those councils. The fact that you're on screen here means you're probably not. Make sure that you're up to date with the publications, and all of the publications are written. They're all been written so you can dip in, find the bit you want and dive back out. They're all on PDF, so you can do find. So keep yourself up to speed. Not much is changing, but we're not quite sure which way things are going to go as the government sort of settles into things. One good thing we've got is it does look like we might get a standards board back this year. Yes. So that would be the most wonderful thing if it came. But we will have to wait and see. And amusingly, I saw in a discussion on the Scribe Facebook group this morning, somebody saying about compulsory training for councillors. And lots of people go, oh, you can't force them to train because they're councillors, because they're volunteers. Tell that to school governors. Ofsted mark a school down if the governors are not trained. And they are volunteers too. So I think and I know that Rob Smith and Jonathan Owen have spoken to the government about compulsory training for councillors. And I mean, I saw Marcia do a little dance in the corner there. But there are certain, well, there was a comment at the SLCC Hampshire Christmas lunch was saying, well, if we brought in compulsory training, a load of councillors would leave. To which my answer was, good. There are some who really should. It isn't compulsory yet, but start thinking about it. So yeah, that's me whiffling.
You are a legend, Eleanor. Really appreciate your time. Everyone, turn your cameras on, wave, show your love. Clap. Thank you very much, Eleanor. It's been a really good session, showing the love there. Well done, Karen.